Hello and welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and being a guest on
The
this.
pleasure.
Bonnie Brook is the president of Stevenson and Brook, and outside of that is an inspiring leader. I know.
Thank you.
To me, we have known each other for a few years now, but I bring you here today to talk about leadership, mentoring women, advancing women in the industry. We are both kindred in the sense that we are driven. We work very hard at not just our careers, but our companies and the success of our companies. You're an entrepreneur like myself, so there's a lot of admiration in what you have done so far.
Thank you.
Without us talking though about, we lost a really big pioneer this weekend.
I was going to interrupt and say, would that be appropriate for this call? But it was a huge loss. Very, very much so. I've watched the documentary about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and there was also a movie that was out.
Yes.
I read her biography. I have a little statue of her on my desk at the office.
Do you? Do you?
I really do. She is an inspiration.
Truly. And I think COVID came in and changed a lot of how industries are working.
Mm-hmm.
And we're both in the insurance industry, so there's been an impact across the board. We're both also very much involved in construction, distribution, real estate management, and big impact on that. But what COVID also had an impact is on working from home. And I was thinking RBG had such an impact on the rights of women and mothers. So start anywhere you like. Tell me
what you're talking about reminds me of why I started my own company. I remember going to my manager when my children were young and saying, could I take off at 4 o'clock on Halloween? I'd like to take them trick-or-treating. And he looked at me like I was an alien from another planet. He said, no, you can't take off early. You have a regular job. This has nothing to do with he said something like, if everybody asked me to take off early, I'd have nobody here on Halloween, something. And I remember leaving there, obviously not taking the time off, and saying to myself, do I want to live the rest of my life, under this kind of influence? I want to be in a decision-making role where I can give other people, not just myself, but other people, the values that I hold dear to, and let them try to merge their personal life and their work life together. And that's been one of my goals, not just running the company and making money and all of the things that we all want to do, but I want to offer the values and the environment to my employees, and not just women. We have men working for us, not a lot. We have 3 men working for us, but they appreciate all of the same values. And they like to be able to do what they need to do with their children and have a life that really, puts the two together, where you're not always deciding which comes first. And I think
it's funny. It's really funny that you say that because, 2 points. When I began business in about 35 years ago, I was working as an intensive care nurse.
Right.
The hospital that I worked in was closing, and the controller was starting a business in medical bill repricing. And it came down to the ICU nurses, one, because we were younger, right out of school in many cases, and more recently educated in medicine. So I began to work with him. And I learned so much, like you said, in your first experience, in the inequality of not necessarily the values, but very much on what it was like being a parent while working and wanting to succeed. And it had a lot to do with, it's funny you use Halloween as an example.
Yeah.
We give our employees off early on Halloween. Male or female, they can get home and go out and trick or treat with their kids, make sure their kids are safe. But that had a lot to do with me going into my own business.
Exactly.
Very much the value of time, appreciating the workplace.
Right.
And I think we've both done that with our employees.
Right. I know I never want anyone to feel what I felt working in a large organization, where if one of my children were sick, I was so stressed out about, should I leave them with a babysitter? Should I go to work? What is my boss going to say? So when somebody starts work with us, that's put right on the table. Your kids come first. And if you have a child that is sick, you can work from home. You can bring the child into the office when we used to be in our office environment, put them in the conference room. We have a television there. I never want you to feel that pull of where should I be? What should I be doing?
Yeah, and going back to RBG, that's for sure the inspiration, you know,
Definitely.
the fight for
Definitely.
equality.
Yeah.
Not just equality, but peace in the workplace. I think, I know now with COVID brought a lot of changes. And I conversation in general in workers' comp will be changing. It's not even mothers or fathers now, it's parents.
Right.
It's parents in the workplace, parents with responsibilities. People are now teaching their kids from home. How did you see COVID impact Stevenson and Brook, and where is it going with leadership, in your opinion, and the roles of all people at home in the workplace?
Well, as an entrepreneur, we closed our offices March 12th, and I probably had a week of sleepless nights, being very, very scared. What is going to happen to my business? What is going to happen to us? Also, as a business owner, I decided that I could cut my salary by a certain percentage and would be willing to do that. And I did it for a few months. I did not want anybody else to suffer in an environment where I knew it would be extremely hard for them to find a job. So from the COVID perspective, I was very, very worried as to how it was going to impact our clients, because like you do, we have renewals. So we have clients that are under contract for a year. And I was worried when it came up again for their renewal, were they going to be willing to spend the money to manage an insurance area that was not life and death for them? They could do without us. So I right away got into gear of how can we ensure that our clients are happy, that they're getting everything that they need. And one of the ways was to reach out to them and say, what are your plans for COVID? How can we help you? What do you need from us to be able, to do this? At this point, we've managed about 200 COVID cases in different states. And the rules and regulations
That's
are very different.
I was just going to say that's complicated in and of itself in the
Exactly. And not just in companies like nursing homes, assisted living, healthcare organizations, but we have a lot of clients that are facility services where they're cleaning LaGuardia Airport, they're cleaning the PATH, subway stations. They're first, responders in some way. But we've had a lot of construction accounts where they were working, an individual is working next to somebody who has COVID. So it became, I think the first month or so, we all had to become very educated internally about COVID. None of us knew what it was before. We weren't sure about the regulations. We have a very close relationship with labor law firms. And so we went to them to ask questions. What happens if a company is still open and an employee feels unsafe coming back to work? What do you do in that situation? Can they go on unemployment or whatever? So there was a lot of that, a lot of learning that went on about COVID. Then we became worried about what's going to happen to the backlog that our clients have. Are they going to go out of business as a result of COVID, which would, obviously have an impact on us. And a good example is we write a large theater group on Broadway, and they are going to be closed now for 2 years. So they shut down when COVID occurred. They do not think they're going to be back in business until 2022. So I have a good amount of those kinds of clients where it impacts me, not because they don't want to hire us, but they're just not running their business the way
they don't have the business. Exactly.
Exactly.
We too went to evolve new services out of what we were doing to help in the COVID climate.
Right.
As you know, the Viscardi Connect program to assist employers in helping their furloughed and laid off employees. And we've had quite a few COVID claims too. So it's interesting. But I find it even more interesting because I know the many jurisdictions that you work in, and each state currently is rolling out compensability rules and regs, different ones.
Right.
And it must take a lot to keep
keep up with it. There
I
are a
know
few
for
things.
us to keep up with it as well.
Yeah, there's a few things on our side of the business that are state particular that are interesting that I think are going to eventually become more more utilized. In New York and California, there are, those two states have put in legislation where the data that goes in on COVID claims cannot enter the EMR. So let's take, we have a joint client that's a liquor distributor. If they have data that goes in because some of their employees have been out on COVID, you can request that that data not be put into the calculation. And that's
fantastic.
That's very, very good. It means
the impact on that formula algorithm result is tremendous. That's tremendous.
And that was the same 9/11. The state of New York did that during 9/11 as well. If you had a claim that was related to 9/11, it did not enter into the data. So that was a big help. The other trend we're seeing right now, and this starts in California where a lot of the trends do start, is they are talking about putting on surcharges to your insurance because of COVID. So now almost every insurance policy has a terrorism addition onto it. So everybody is paying a portion of it. And they're starting to think of putting that on now in other states.
Well, this, needless to say, I know 1918 was the pandemic everybody talks about. I don't think this is the last one in our lifetime. I think we'll see more, and the impact on the insurance industry is tremendous.
Joan, taking what you just said, which is an interesting thought, if this is not just the only one that we're going to be going through, what could we have done as entrepreneurs, as business owners, to have protected ourselves and our clients before this happened? Is there anything that we could have put in place, or can we put in place for when we're going forward so that we're not as heavily affected?
First of all, let's switch seats now, and I'll take the interviewee.
Sure, you can do
that.
Absolutely.
Because that question is spot on. When we had COVID hit at Viscardi, we had already transitioned everybody to remote. So number one, I think that was a game changer for us.
Right.
We didn't lose time. We did not lose any impact on any claims handling, any of our services.
Right.
We're able to work remotely. I think that's changed now. I think companies across the board are working remotely.
And I think it's going to continue that way.
I do too. I don't know if most will bring them back. I know a lot of you were talking about law firms earlier. A lot of the comp law firms now are working remotely.
Right.
They plan to go back. So I think the impact on city real estate will be tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Good time to buy a condo in the city, Joan. Or a co-op.
Or soon.
Yeah.
But I think that we could have done, everybody can do. I think that is something people need to do. I think childcare is really important. I think knowing what childcare responsibilities parents have.
Right.
Mothers, but not just mothers. Mothers, fathers, and parents have prepares us also. Because there was a big flux when education rolled back out. When kids had to be taught at home, and it's still happening. So I think that has to be prepared for. I think we, as entrepreneurs, prepare for that. I think we also have to be very smart in our staffing. I'm always reevaluating staffing now, especially now that we moved to home.
Right.
They don't have to travel anymore. They have more effective time, I think, at home.
Right.
Managed well.
Right.
Impact our businesses as business owners.
Yeah, yeah. I know at the beginning of when COVID started, as a business owner, I was obviously very concerned and distraught about what was going on. And other than my 2 or 3 senior managers that I work with, I had to be very careful to not let everybody know how disturbed I was. And that was a lot of energy. That was a lot of personal energy to always have a smile on my face and be positive and everything is fine. And I think that's a responsibility that you take as an owner of a company.
Oh, you do. And I think it's important that you say that as a solution moving forward, wellness is huge right now. You know, it used to be mental health. It used to be a catchphrase, you know, it used to be a catchphrase. Oh, wellness, well-being. No, it's really very, very important. The team needs to know, like you said, that you've got it together, that
Right.
you have their backs, that you are there, proactive, ahead of the
Right.
curve. But I also think they need to know that you care about their mental health. We're giving mental health time off now. It's
Wow.
multiple hours.
Tell me a little bit about that. That's interesting.
So during COVID, when workload decreased, so staffing stayed the same, we maintained staffing, and then the workload decreased. No one was taking vacation.
Right.
What was the purpose? Where were they going?
Where are you going to go? Right.
They wanted to save it. So what we did is institute MTO, mental time off. And what that is everyone gets a half a day, 4 hours a week that they take off. We assign that time so that it can be planned. They can be coverage for an employee,
Right.
one for the other. But it allows people to take care of themselves, whether they're going to a doctor's appointment. It helped parents work with their kids, go on Zoom calls. And what I found is a decrease in time off,
Mm-hmm.
sick time. People start to take their vacation, which I think is very important psychologically.
Right.
And it also allowed the team to know we all had each other's backs.
Right.
We now send a reminder twice a day to take a break, take a 10-minute break, meaning please leave your computer. Please
Right.
talk, please breathe, make a cup of tea,
Right.
do a few yoga moves, whatever you want to do to keep yourself happy. Because now you're talking about your question earlier and changes ergonomically. People are working at home.
Right.
You didn't per se set up.
Exactly.
And
Right.
you want them safe. You want to prevent injury. You want to prevent
Right.
repetitive injury. So we thought that extra half a day would be great. And it's been
That's an amazing concept.
tremendously successful.
So 4 hours a week.
4 hours a week. So everyone gets a half a day off during the week.
Yeah.
It's the same 4 hours every week. So you know when it is. So you can plan in advance.
Right.
On a personal level. And it cuts down people coming in late, leaving early.
Right. Right.
They're there. They're getting the work done.
We did something when we were still in the office because so many people were coming in late because of whatever was happening. We said, we're going to give you an hour in the morning, depending on what your hours are. You don't have to call in or whatever. If you're supposed to be in at 8, you can be in by 9. And we had such a great resurgence of energy in people, knowing that they didn't have to get in and they were so worried. They were sitting in traffic, etc. And those
like
things
you
make
said,
a big difference.
Depression, anxiety, all stem from an insecurity of what's happening. And I think outside of a clinical diagnosis, everybody's suffering with some type of question right now in what's the landscape in the future. Am I secure in my position? Am I secure in my future, my children's future? So I think even doing that, you give people the sense that you really have control of what's happening.
Right. Do you see any changes in your particular industry because of COVID?
Telemedicine. I think
I love it personally.
I think it's here to stay. I think
exactly.
Here to stay. I think for the workers' comp industry, it will delay claims for sure, because you can't objectively, measure someone's ability or inability.
I feel, very sorry for my clients where claims could have come to resolution months and months ago, but because there has been no elective surgery, the claim is hanging on and it's costing the employer a lot more money.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But from my end, I don't know from your end, I found all employers very compassionate.
Yes.
A small mom and pop organization or a billion-dollar corporation, everyone, I think, during the pandemic has been very compassionate to their.
Yeah, I think it's because it's something that can hit anyone at any time. So everybody, looks at it personally and says, how is this or how could this affect me?
Well, I think that goes back to your change in the rapport between clients. People are much easier to talk to now.
Right.
We're all on the same playing field.
Yeah. Another topic that I think is really interesting to discuss is how do we as entrepreneurs grow our businesses? when we are still physically limited from seeing people. To me, that's my
A
greatest
lot like
challenge.
this, Bonnie, you know, a lot with technology like this.
Yeah,
You know, it's getting yourself out there in different ways, getting
yeah.
involved in the organizations within the industry.
Mhm.
Talked about women in construction, really becoming involved in the organizations that are affiliated with your industry,
Right,
your sectors of businesses
yeah,
that the company works for. I think that's really important.
important, yeah, yeah. And at what point, Joan, from a medical perspective, do we think it's comfortable to go out and start seeing clients again?
As a nurse, from a nurse's perspective, it's going to take a long time.
It's gonna take, yeah,
I think now, as the summer is winding down, I'm thinking more and more, this is a good time to see people outside.
right.
If you can have a meeting with someone outside where you can
Mhm.
social distance, you're out in the fresh air, the air circulates.
Right,
That's an opportunity, maybe to have coffee with someone.
right,
You can meet outside, but internally, you have to know what the air quality is like,
right,
what procedures are like.
yeah.
And
I
it's,
have a few,
and
I
it's
have a
really
few-
important, keep that
I
mask,
have-
keep the mask
I
on.
keep them everywhere. I even got one of those chains and I can wear it around my neck, which is great.
It's been wonderful. And I think
Thank you, Joan. Thank
And
you. Thank you for the opportunity.
my pleasure, Bonnie. You
Thank
take care
you.
of yourself.
Thank you.